We will now begin our day 3 of 1 week faculty development program on understanding NAAC criteria, marching towards excellence, with today's focus on criterion 3, research and extension by invoking God's blessings.
Srividya ma'am, not able to hear ma'am.
Just a minute, ma'am.
Yes.
May I now invite Ms. S. Chandni, Assistant Professor, Department of English and IQAC Steering Committee member, Criterion 3, to welcome the gathering and introduce the speaker for today.
Thank you, ma'am. A pleasant evening to one and all here. I extend a warm welcome to everyone for the third day of the 1 week FTP on Understanding NAAC Criteria, Marching Towards Excellence, organized by Sri Shankarlal Sundar by Shashan Jain College for Women in collaboration with IQAC Cluster India. A hearty welcome to Dr. Hemant Kumar S. Chandak, Professor and Head, Department of Chemistry and Coordinator IQAC of GS Science, Arts and Commerce College, Kamgaon, Buldana. I take immense pleasure in welcoming the IQAC coordinators, academicians of esteemed institutions, and other dignitaries for joining us today. I also invite our management members, Principal Dr. S. Padmavati, Vice Principal Dr. S. Rukmani, and faculty of our college. Before we proceed further, a brief introduction on our speaker for the day. Dr. Hemant Kumar S. Chandak, Head and Professor of the Department of Chemistry, is the coordinator of IQAC at GS Science, Arts and Commerce College, Kamgaon, Buldana. He has a postdoctoral from Rutgers University, New Jersey, USA, and PhD in Organic Chemistry from Amravati University, Amravati. Dr. Hemant Kumar has in total 21 years of experience in teaching. He received the UGC Raman Fellowship for postdoctoral research in USA for 12 months. He also received the district level Best Teacher Award and community member of ACS in 2020. He is a member of Board of Studies in Chemistry of SGBAU Amravati University. Dr. Hemant Kumar is a reviewer for many journals published by Elsevier, Springer, ACS, RSC, and Wiley publications, to name a few. He is a recognized PhD supervisor, published 2 books, 39 research papers in international journals, numerous conference proceedings, and over 50 conference presentations, and has received research grants. Dr. Hemant Kumar got A grade under RAF of NAC and is now mentoring 10 colleges for NAC preparation. A hearty welcome to you, sir. We are looking forward to an eye-opening session on Criteria 3, Research and Extension.
Yeah. Shall I start?
Yes, sir. Please.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Chandini ma'am, for the kind words of introduction. Very good evening to one and all present here. Principal of the college, Dr. Padmavati, Vice Principal, Dr. Rukmini, IQSC Coordinator, Dr. Uma Maheshwari ma'am. She has been constantly in touch with us for getting the things done. And today is the day we are together virtually to have some sort of deliberation on the criteria 3 of RAF. Okay. Someone please help me. Am I visible? My screen is visible and am I perfectly audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Your screen is visible, sir.
Okay. Thank you. So, once again, thank you all the organizing team, and I heartily welcome all of you for this particular session, where we will be talking about the criterion number 3, which deals with the RAF, which deals with the research, innovation and extension, and is based on the revised accreditation framework of the NAC as per the recent guideline. Now, let me begin with the criteria number 3 in particular is converting 3 important aspects. One of them is research. Second one is innovation. Third one is extension. And fourth one is missing, not mentioned in the name, but it is about the linkage and the collaboration. So this criteria assesses the institution related to the research, innovation, extension, and the collaboration which the institution has established. In this particular session, the way we are going to see this would be, we will just have a bird's eye view on the revised accreditation framework. Thereafter, we will see the key indicators of the criterion 3, and we will do the detailed metric-wise analysis in the context of criterion 3, where we will be focusing on what are the requirements of the documents as per the DVV SOP. We will also look for the documentation, what data to be provided, what data not to be provided. We'll also do some sort of analysis. Thereafter, we will talk about some quality initiatives that can be taken in the context of criterion number 3, which you can claim in criterion number 6 as a whole. Because you see, an institution is said to be performing well if the 3 pillars are working well, and these 3 pillars are teaching, research and extension, and all these pillars, they should go hand in hand. Then only institution could be called as a successful institution in terms of catering the needs, education needs of the student. We will, wherever possible, we will also talk about the QLM, where we will talk about how we should prepare for the peer team visit, because qualitative metrics are being assessed by the peer member when they visit the campus. So that time the qualitative metrics are being evaluated by the peer members, and how to prepare for the peer team visit, we will also try to throw some light on that part. And in the end, I would also talk about how you could look for the best practices in the context of criteria number 3. How you could actually come up with the best practices from the criteria number 3. This will be the flow of my session today. Coming to the first point, which is revised accreditation framework in a nutshell. So this is a criterion where you will find a lot of diversity. So altogether, it's needless to mention that there are 7 criterion and about 31 to 34 key indicators, of which about 35 to 36 are the qualitative metrics and remaining are the quantitative metrics. If you compare the total number of metrics for the universities, autonomous colleges, the colleges offering undergraduate education and the colleges offering undergraduate as well as postgraduate education, the metrics are mentioned in this particular slide is needless to mention. Now, what is actually NAAC process is? The NAAC process is all about assessing an institution. It's a two-way process. It's actually beneficial to everyone. The first thing first is the institution gets an opportunity to do its SWOT analysis, and one can consider NAAC as a tool. So it can be considered as a tool. And you have been given with, say, if you are a PG affiliated college, then you are getting a 96 metrics on. So these 96 metrics or 96 questions can be essentially a tool that can assess the institution in terms of its strength, weakness, opportunities, and the challenges. And in a nutshell, the complete SSR that we study, which is called a self-study report. A self-study report is essentially consisting of the data that consists of some of the metrics are input based, some of the metrics are output based, and some of the metrics are process based. So one, in the context of criteria 3, in the context of research, I would say you will say in your college, if there are 100 faculties, in your institutions, there are 100 faculties. So your input is how many faculties are there? 100. And output is how many papers they have published during the last 5 years, during the assessment period. And say they have published, altogether they have published 300 papers in the last assessment, in the last 5 years. It means that there are 100 faculty members in the institution and they have produced about 300 papers. So this will be output. And the role of the institution comes here. What sort of processes they have developed in order to convert their input into a better output. So what sort of processes they have developed, that will be a question that will be assessed on many of the metrics. So if you categorize all the questions, all the metrics in the revised accreditation framework, you will notice that there are some input based, some output based, and some process based question. So you will be assessed all together on these 3 aspects, and your grades and your NAAC score sheet will be an outcome of this. Okay. Now, what sort of information is required in SSR? When you prepare a SSR, the majority of the portion, which is actually about 70%, is quantitative metrics, where you have to provide the data with the supporting document, with the supporting documents in support of your claim. And there's one more component which is called as a student satisfaction survey, which has been introduced in the RAF, which was not earlier. These are the 2 processes. This has been taken care by the data verification and validation unit of NAAC in online mode, whereas about 30% of the metrics are assessed by the on-site peer team visit. So this is the things that you must be knowing. And you have to provide for the qualitative metrics, you have to provide the your inputs in the form of answer to a question, like how does an institution ensures effective curriculum delivery? And in the quantitative metrics, you will provide the data. And at some instance, you need to provide a links to the HCI website, say links to the meetings of IQAC, minutes of IQAC meetings, or links to the IT policy, or link to the research policy. And all the metrics, whether it's qualitative or quantitative, it has to be supported by the additional information which can be a report of an activity, which could be something like photo gallery, like how many classrooms you have, say significant documents and important letters related to the affiliation, 2F12B grants, 2F12B affiliation of UGC. Likewise, there are so many documents required. Now coming to the criteria number 3, as I was suggested that I need to focus on the manual of affiliated college. At times I will try to cover some of the metrics from the affiliated college for the autonomous college as well. This is a metric where you will find that there are 7 key indicators, and for university the weightage is about 250. So this is a metric which could be playing a major role in deciding the NAAC grade of an university. In the context of the colleges, affiliated colleges, whether UG or PG, the weightage is about 110 or 120. And there is only one difference. There is one additional metric called innovation ecosystem, which is applicable for the PG colleges. Otherwise, there are 4 metrics like research mobilization, resource mobilization, research publication, extension activities, and collaboration. These are the 4 metrics which are applicable for the colleges offering only UG programs. Criteria number 3 in particular, as I mentioned, that there will be a question based on input, output, and the process base. This particular criteria assesses the institution in terms of what policies, practices, and outcomes are there in the context of research culture, in the context of extension activity, and how is the institution proactive in building the linkages and collaboration for the benefit of their faculty and the students. And additionally, there is one more part which is called as innovation that is also there. So these are some of the things that will be assessed in the criteria number 3. Now coming to the research, as I mentioned, there are 3 important or 4 important sub points in the criteria number 3. The first point is research. As I mentioned, that what is the output for the research? If anyone visits any institution and he wants to know, like if someone visits the institution, any external peer visits the institution, the principal of the college or the teacher, he tells that ours is a college with this much number of teachers, and we have this much number of the teachers with PhD degree. We have this much number of teachers with the PhD degree, this much number of research paper we have published, this much patents we have published and granted, conference proceedings, how many proceedings you have published, books and chapters, conference presentation, how many projects you have executed, how many grants you have grabbed, how many teachers are research guide, and how many students are actually completed their PhD under the guidance of the research, how many fellowship for research have been procured. These are some of the research output. This is not an extensive list. This is just a suggestive list, and there are some of the research output. And what is the input? The input are there are 2 important input. One of them is human resource. Second one is infrastructure. And the most important stakeholder in the context of higher education is the teacher, then research student, then master student, then UG students, and the person from industry. And this human resource need to provide with a good infrastructure. And if you have a very good infrastructure, then very good human resource, then probably the human resource can tap funds from the funding agency, and they can build infrastructure. And in order to convert this input into a better output, what an institution need to have is they need to build up the policies and procedure for the execution of the research. So institution need to have a well-defined policies and procedure for the execution of the research. Though this metric is not applicable, I would suggest, I have visited your session website and I found that your research policy is under construction. So it's good to know that you are preparing your research policy. There should be a policy document on research as well. And as usual, in tomorrow's session, there will be more deliberation about how to write the policy document. Kangude sir will be talking more about the policy document, but I would just say that every policy document should have some preamble. There should be an aim of the policy, why you have defined the policy, and then you should have the guidelines. The guidelines should be for, like, if you want to encourage the research output, if you want to get the better research output, what is expected? The policy should define some of the points. These are some of the suggestive points that could be included in the research policy. Like institution can provide a seed money to the teachers. The concept of seed money need to be explored, and the institution can provide a seed money to the budding researcher. Secondly, what is the policy for infrastructure augmentation? Like how many centers are to be recognized by the affiliated university? How are you going to improve the infrastructural facility in the lab in terms of equipments and other thing? If you have equipment, what is the SOP for the utilization of the equipment? Because I have seen many institutions, they have really good infrastructure in terms of equipment, but their issue is underutilized infrastructure. So all these things can be clearly defined. Who will be given preference to use the equipment? What will be the procedure to use the equipment? How many charges you are charging for the use of equipment? Are you going to allow the external members to use that equipment? And of course, there is one part which is usually missing in the colleges is providing incentive to the teachers for the research outcome. So you can, like in a college, you can start something like a research award scheme wherein you can give an award to the teacher who is publishing well in the quality journals, who is guiding more number of students, who is fetching more amount of grant. So likewise, you can provide a policy for the incentive to the student. And of course, you can also plan for engaging all your students, maybe UG and PG other than research student. Like the one we started in our college is we have a summer research program in our college. You can visit our website and you can find out we have a policy document for promotion of summer research there. Just an example to cite here. So aim for engaging UG and PG students in the research activity as well. Maybe you can give them a small project. Then how to encourage the faculty members that they should grab a research grant. What should be the modus operandi for the submission of the research proposal? A functioning research advisory committee, which is now mandatory nowadays, and training on research writing, because unfortunately many of the teachers, because of the Control-C, Control-V culture, which is copy-paste culture, most of the teachers are facing the problem with plagiarism, and most of the researchers are facing a problem with the plagiarism. So can we train them so that they can come up with their original writing? Can we train the faculty members and the research student on research writing, writing proposals, writing research paper, writing reviews, writing books? Likewise, we can train. Can we provide a financial assistance to the teachers for their participation in conferences and seminar? And of course, guideline for paper publication and format for the proposal submission and the progress report. So training on all these aspects would be a very important part in the context of this will be very important in the context of creating a research policy. So whether yours is a UG college or PG college, I request all of you that there should be a well-defined research policy based on your infrastructure, based on your requirement, and the institution should have your own policy for there should be a well-defined policy for promotion of research. In addition, what we can do is, now we are moving towards, this was just an introductory remark. Now moving forward, coming to the first key indicator, which is resource mobilization for research. This is a key indicator which is applicable for all the colleges, all type of manuals like undergraduate, postgraduate, autonomous, and the university. So here, we all know that funding is always required. If you want to execute a research idea through a research project, for organization of the event, for executing your ideas in the laboratory, you need equipment, lab, you need a travel grant for attending a conference. Maybe if you are planning to go abroad and attend a conference, And funding can always be hatched from the fellowship for advanced research. Like there are many fellowships for postgraduate, postdoctoral research. And of course, there are certain endowments and awards as well. So these are some of the sources of funding. These are some of the areas where you can really focus and you can grab the funding for research. Coming to the key indicator 3.1, there are actually three metrics in this particular. The three metrics are based on like 311 and 313. They are based on, they will seek information about how much grant you have grabbed and how many number of departments are actually undertaking the research project. The same question is there for UG, PG, and this question is always there for UG, PG, and autonomous college. But the numbers are different. The question becomes different for UG. For UG, the question, UG colleges, means undergraduate colleges, the question is how many seminar / conferences you have organized. And for PG, the question is how many recognized research guides are there in the college. Now, in this particular metric, what we should not give is we should not give the grants given by your own trust or the sister institution. If your own institutions is giving the grant, then you can probably show it as in seed money, and which could be one of the best practice of your college, providing seed money to the teachers for conducting the research, or providing financial assistance to the teachers for execution of the project. And whatever the grants we receive for equipment, software, or skill development center under different heads from the different funding agency, that should not be included. Now, let me show some light on what sort of funding opportunities are there. So, as I mentioned that in order to convert input into better output, there are two important things. Number one is to have the good human resource, and number two is to have a good infrastructure. And infrastructure can be built in if you have a very good human resource. So human resource means the teachers can really fetch a grant from different funding agency. Like these are some of the funding agencies where you can, tap funding for infrastructure, like DST Feast, which is for the science colleges, DPT Star, which is again for the science college, but for undergraduate education, DRDO Center for Excellence Scheme, UGC SAP, which is again for the department. And in addition to these, there are certain National Council for the promotion of the Indic languages. So like in your case, you can look for the National Council for promotion of Tamil, and you can look for establishing a center for that. And of course, you can also grab funding from the alumni and the philanthropists from the society. I visited IIT Bombay, and there I have seen that the management building is provided by the Jamnalal Bajaj Group by Rahul Bajaj and the company. So Bajaj has sponsored that complete building. So if we are coming up with a very good plan, then philanthropists will come forward, alumni will come forward, and they can contribute to our cause. In addition to these, if you are like second aspect other than infrastructure is project and a travel grant, and you can always explore these funding agencies. These are the funding agencies for sciences and engineering. These are the funding agencies for social sciences, and these are for humanities. So you can explore these funding agencies and you can grab funding, and these fundings are definitely going to help you to come up with a better research output. Okay. In addition, I have some list of some fellowship for advanced studies, like Humboldt Fellowship from Germany, DAD from Germany, Raman Fellowship, which I availed. It is from our own country, which is like UGC, DSK, PDF it is again from UGC. Then in addition to these, there is one scheme called UGC Research Award, wherein you can continue your research work at your own place, and you are getting some fellowship financial assistance for executing research, and additionally you are getting the funds fellowship other than your regular salary. In addition to this, DST has came up with one interesting scheme which is called TARE, Teachers Associateship for Research Excellence. And this is a scheme wherein you can, a teacher who has done PhD can now go to a nearby premier institute like IIT, IISER. You can target some of the premier institute close by, and you can have some sort of collaboration with them, and you can work on the collaborative project wherein you will get an opportunity to get an exposure to work in a premier institute for the research, and you have to spend 3 months per year at that institution. So without hampering your academic work, because 9 months is a good enough time in a year to complete our academic liabilities, academic responsibilities, like teaching responsibilities in particular, and thereafter we can manage, and in a span of 1 year we can find out like slot of 15 days or 4 weeks, and then we can visit those institutions. So these are some of the schemes that one can look for. Now, writing the proposal. Whenever we write a project proposal is very, very important. Whenever you write project proposal, you have to be very, 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 very meticulous in writing the project proposal, because if your proposal is not written well, then probably you will not get funding. And if you don't get funding, your research ideas will be ideas, and ideas have no values unless they are executed. So you can look for the project fundings, and while writing the proposal, the clue is the project can be individual, project can be project centric, like group of people can come together, can be institution centric, and it could be national or international. There are international funding agencies as well, which will support you. And while writing the project proposal, if you do not have funding, then probably this will be the situation of the lab. So these are the group of the scientists. This cartoon clearly tells you that first our funding ran out, and now the rat. So they were doing some experiments on the rat. So on the things on which they were doing experiments, they are not in their lab now because they do not have the fund. But if you have some good, very innovative idea, very good idea, then probably you can get as a gold mine. If you have a very good idea, then probably that idea could be a gold mine and could provide funding throughout your lifetime. And writing proposal, I would take this opportunity to give an insight on this particular aspect, because NAAC is not everything. RAF of NAAC is not everything. NAAC is just a tool to assess ourselves, as I mentioned earlier. But as a researcher, as a teacher, we should be active in all the aspects like teaching, research, and extension. In the context of research, whenever we are writing the proposal, the project should be driven by unanswered questions, and it should not be, and whatever the rationale we provide, it should be strong and justifiable and relevant to the contemporary issues. And also there should be, the project should be feasible. Now, like 3 important keywords are very, very important in getting the grants or writing the proposal. The project should be original, project should be novel, and project should be clear. Original means it should be devoid of Control-C and Control-V. There should not be anything copied and pasted from any source. And novel, in the sense, this cartoon clearly tells you that, like, Newton sat below the tree and apple fall and he discovered the law of gravity. Someone like sit me below the orange tree and conclude that oranges also follow the law of gravity. So there is no novelty in this idea, and there is a possibility that you will not get any grants for this. So with these are some of the important suggestions that how one should write a project and how one can grab the grants. Now coming to the metrics. In the key indicator 3.1, for PG we have, for UG and PG we have the 2 metrics. The numbers are different, but content are same. Here, the data sheet will seek information about these aspects: name of the principal investigator, duration of the project, fund received, and department of the recipient. As I mentioned, that what are the things that are being checked? Number 1 is the fund. Number two is the how many teachers or department they are receiving the grant. And the third important aspect is the duration of the project, because the duration should be aligned with the assessment period. The duration of the grant period should be aligned with the assessment period. Say we are submitting a SSR, say in the year 21-22, then in the last 5 years, some part of your project should fall in the last 5 years. Say from, so last year would be 2021, and likewise you can go back to the subsequent 5 years. Okay, so make sure that some part of your project, say if you have a project which has been started somewhere 6 years before, and the duration of the project is 3 years, it means that some part of the project falls in the assessment period, and you can definitely claim for that particular project. And what are the documents you need to provide? You need to provide the e-copies of the grant award letters for the project, grant, travel grants and endowments. In addition, as I mentioned, do not show any grant given by your own trust or sister institutions. Do not show any grant received for the equipment or software development or any sort of. Yeah, I have a question received in the chat box. If co-investigator in the project, it is considered. Co-investigator is also considered. So you can write in the column, sorry, in the column, just a moment, I need to, yeah, you can write down the name of co-investigator as well. Okay, so because co-investigator is the one who is again responsible for the execution of the project. He's partly responsible for the execution of the project. So definitely you can get a credit for that. Okay, now moving forward, the next question is about how many teachers are research guide. This is a very straightforward question, because if you are an affiliated college, the affiliating university, you need to apply through a proper procedure, and you are going to get the letter for being the research guide. So you can upload that letter. Very straightforward question. Only thing is, only teachers of the institution who served during the assessment period. Make sure that if someone who is a research guide at other college, and your college is actually a recognized research center. So I don't know whether in Chennai this is the procedure or not, but in Maharashtra we have like someone who is a guide in my college and who is guiding the student at other research center, because my college do not have a recognized research center of the university. Then in that case, you can, if the teacher is from your institution, you can claim for that particular teacher in this particular metric. But if a teacher from other institution guiding at your research center, it will not be considered. Okay, so teacher from other institution guiding at your center will not be considered, because the reason is the data sheet for this particular metric is linked with 242, where we are giving the details about the teacher's profile of the institution. We talked about their joining date, we talk about we give the data about their experience, we give the data about their qualification, and we also mentioned there about whether they are research supervisor or not. Okay. Now, this is a metric for undergraduate colleges. So there is no such metric for the colleges which are postgraduate, which are offering postgraduate programs. What is the question? The question is very straightforward. How many seminar, conferences, workshop they are being conducted or organized by the college. So here you need to give the data about how many participants participated in the event, the date, from and to, and the important is linked to the activity report on the website. This is the most important part, because once the program is over, say this FDP is over, within a week time, a complete report on this FDP should be uploaded on the HEI website. And that report should contain the details of the program, who was the resource person, what was the topic covered, what was covered, and brochure, photograph, caption, photograph with date and caption, and attendance and certificates of the participants of the randomly selected event will be asked. Say in the last 5 years, the college has conducted say 12 events. So of those 12 events, randomly any event, say event number 7 in the list, is being chosen by DVV, and they will ask you to provide a sample certificate and the attendance list of the participant that need to be provided. So these are some of the things that is important in the context of documentation part of this particular metric. Okay, now coming to the next key indicator, which is innovation ecosystem. In this particular, this is an metric, this is a key indicator only applicable for the colleges offering postgraduate education. There are two questions, one of them is quantitative, other one is qualitative metric. Let us understand what is innovation ecosystem. Here the word ecosystem is more important. Of course, innovation is central there, but what sort of ecosystem as the institute has developed for promotion of the innovation. So it is expected that an institution should have an e-cell, because nowadays everything is ICT based, so there should be an e-cell. Institution should have a very good research culture. Institution should provide mentoring, about which I will talk in the next slide, and seed funding for the execution of small ideas. And this innovation ecosystem should be there to nurture the novel and contemporary ideas, out of box thinking, and promoting X factor among the stakeholders, including the students. So this is what is expected in the innovation ecosystem. Now coming to the incubation center. Incubation center is a part of an innovation ecosystem. It is expected that the institution should have an incubation center in the college, and this incubation center help the entrepreneurs to solve some of the problems commonly associated with running the startup or business. So it cannot be always startup, it could be something like a business. And this picture clearly tells you that this process, hatching of egg, takes place when it is incubated properly. So incubation, this picture clearly defines what is the role of an incubation center and how an incubation center would be. I would talk about what is expected in the incubation center, and in the second part I will also talk about how you can grab funds for establishing the incubation center, because many of the institutions are facing the crunch of the shortage of funds for the execution of this incubation center. Ideally, an incubation center should have a dedicated workspace, which could be furnished, semi-furnished or unfurnished depending upon the budgetary position. It should provide a mentoring assistance to all the stakeholders who need. Ideally, there should be a high-speed internet access there, and accounting and financial management access. Ideally, there should be a meeting room where you can have some sort of discussion over there with a projection equipment, so that someone can come up with the idea, he can present the idea, share his idea, and can have some brainstorming on the issues. And linked to the higher education resources, it could be something like research journals, so or other resources, education resources, where you can get some idea related to the business. Like some of the things that we did in our college is that I will showcase you. Let me tell you very clearly that I am from a location, from a semi-urban location. So the place where I'm living is having a population of about 2 lakh. So very semi-urban kind of location I'm living in, and we have, like, what we did in our innovation ecosystem, or what sort of incubation center we have established in our college, is we have developed an Internet of Things lab where we brought some BlackBerry kits and we are providing a training to the students. We have collaborated with one IT firm who is providing a training to our student for the development of mobile application, app development. So that particular thing that we are doing, And I was talking about mentoring. So one of the student, so being located in semi-urban area, we have now Swiggy also in our place, but earlier 2-3 years before, we do not have Swiggy. So Swiggy and Zomato were not serving in our area. So one of our student, he came forward with an idea and he started foodbuddyonline.com in Khamgaon, and he started working on the same line of Swiggy and Zomato. He actually, when he was in BSc second year, he was earning about 30,000 per month. So when the peer team member comes to you, and if you have some example that this is a student who came up with the idea, we guided him, and now he's earning, and he himself will narrate the story to the peer team member. If possible, if you can bring about an interaction of that particular your success story people with the peer team member, then it will definitely create an impact. Some of the things that can be done, like very simple things like preparation of LED bulb, you can provide a training and you can ask them to earn money. Home safety, one of the college I know has collaborated with the police department, and he's developing an home safety module based on what we call Alexa, using Alexa and making the smart home and safer home using the sensor-based energy conservation mechanism. In our college, we also provided a financial assistance to the group of students who said that they can prepare a drone, and we used the same drone for flowering the showers of the peer team on the day of peer team visit. And of course, promotion of entrepreneurship, conduct some small events. So these are some of the things that one can conduct. Just to tell you what we did in our college, you can think of based on your situation and plan and execute the ideas. Normally, an innovation, what is expected in the innovation ecosystem is, we know that every innovation starts with a problem, and problem then later on leads to an idea, and that idea. So one basic thing is conducting the ideation workshop on the contemporary issues of the society, and on in the context of science or in the context of commerce management. We can conduct ideation workshop where only ideas will be nurtured. Of course, making the people aware about the intellectual property. The government wants that educators need to get aware, because earlier all the educators were mostly engaged in publishing, doing the research and publishing the research paper. Now the government wants that our country should be rich in the context of intellectual property. Personal counseling, there should be some mechanism for personal counseling. As I talked about, one of the foodbuddy.com, we provide personal counseling and financial assistance. A small seed money can be provided for the execution of initial ideas, and financial assistance can be provided to someone who is coming up with the innovative idea. So for drone, we have provided around 30,000 financial assistance. Even though the amount is small, it is important that you are nurturing ideas in the students. So this is what is expected in the innovation ecosystem. And whatever the hackathons, techathons, they took place at various places, in Maharashtra, like we have an Avishkar kind of thing, where in a university level and inter-university Avishkar competition takes place. So there also you can send a proposal and ensuring the student participation. And wherever possible, collaboration need to be also explored, because say, if I'm not having a person who is expertise in a particular field, then probably I can contact with someone who can actually guide us. So a teacher can take initiative and collaborate with the other persons for the execution of the project. Now, the next part that I will talk, I have some question in the chat box. I will try to answer it in the end. Let me finish this innovation ecosystem part. So normally you can fetch funding from, I will give you two important websites to explore where you can find an opportunity to grab the funds. One of them is National Innovation Foundation, which is located in Ahmedabad. So NIF is one of the thing where you can get, these are some of the activities of NIF, and you can look for an opportunity to grab funds from NIF in order to establish an incubation center in your college. Another website that I would like to highlight is Atal Innovation Mission, AIM, Atal Innovation Mission, which is a flagship initiative of Niti Aayog to promote the innovation and entrepreneurship. And there are many schemes which I have mentioned over here. And the main aim is entrepreneurship and innovation, promotion of these two things. And there are different schemes, and you can grab up to a grant of ₹1 crore for the establishment of incubation center in the colleges. So I just request you, because I am not an expert in the field, and I have not even applied for any of the project, but just to give you the source where you can really look for, and you can explore the website and find whether you can get an opportunity to grab the funds from these funding agencies for the establishment of incubation center. Okay, now this is again one of the quantitative metrics which is related to the innovation ecosystem. As I mentioned, making awareness about the IPR is again one of the important aspects. So there are three important things. Number one is IPR, second one is industry academia interaction, and third one is research methodology. Of course, industry academia interaction or something related to the entrepreneurship. So all other events, like you are conducting say conference on some research topic, that cannot be included here. Only the points mentioned here will be included here, and you can conduct this workshop. Ideally, it is expected that college should conduct at least 2 to 3 events per year under this activity in order to get the full credit. Once again, need to highlight that once the activity is over, its report should be uploaded on the website, and link to the website is to be provided in the data sheet. And related to the IPR, because what I personally feel, whatever the problems I am facing in my institution, probably they are everywhere. So considering that, I would like to make a humble submission that there is one more institution in Nagpur, located in Nagpur, called Rajiv Gandhi National Institute of Intellectual Property, right? Intellectual Property Management. So this is an institution where a training is provided. So institution can depute teachers, one or two teachers, for they offer a week-long FDP, week-long program in intellectual property, sometimes a month-long. So you can depute one or two teachers from your colleges to this institution, and you can visit their website and you can find out they have a programs running all the way all across the year, and you can find out a suitable span where you can go and spend some time in that institution in order to get yourself acquainted with the intellectual property management. And probably those teachers, when they come back, they can train all other teachers in the colleges. This is one way you can do that. So once again, I would like to tell you that let me check the question, and then I will move to the thank you, Mary ma'am. So we'll answer the question in the end. Someone will help me to compile the questions, and I will try to answer those questions in the end. So coming to the next key indicator, which is about the research publication. So for UG colleges, the weightage is of 15 marks, and for PG colleges, the weightage is of 15 marks, and for PG colleges, the weightage is of 20 marks, which include one more question, 25 marks, not 20. So here, I think there is some bug. You can cross check it with the manual. I think I have made some typos here or here. So one question which is applicable for PG colleges is number of PhD registered per eligible teacher. So in the earlier metric, like 312, where you said that, say you have got 25 teachers who are recognized supervisor. Now the next question is, how many students are registered under those teachers? See, the question is about registered, not about award data. So be sure that you have to give any student who is officially registered for the PhD to the affiliating university, all those, whether or not he or she has completed PhD, but all those can be mentioned over here. Okay, then Coming to the research publication, this is a topic which is very close to my heart. I will be talking about research papers and books, chapters, and conference proceedings in the coming slides. Coming to the research paper. Now, if you look for the global rankings like QS ranking, you will notice that the highest rank that an Indian institute getting is 171. So it means that no institution in top 150 or for that matter top 170. The first institution, that is IIT Bombay, is taking the position, highest position is 171. What is the reason? One of the reason for this is the quality research output. And why the government is also worried about the quality research output. So what they did in 2009, they came up with the performance-based appraisal system, which we commonly call API. Did 4 amendments in that, changed the weightage pattern. Then even after this, they found that the academia, particularly the publication from academia, research publication from academia, they are not up to the mark. So they came up with, in 2017, they came up with UGC approved list. Now, UGC approved list was prepared by the university with the help of Board of Studies. And Board of Studies have the same teachers who were doing the jugglery with they're doing the copy paste kind of mechanism and publishing the papers. So later on in 2019, with effect from 14th of June 2019, UGC has come up with the CARE protocol, CARE, which is Consortium of Academic and Research Ethics. So all these things are actually gradually coming because the government wants us, we academician, to come up with a quality research publication. And that is why the UGC has came up with the UGC CARE, and the center for it is given to the University of Pune, located in Pune. So what sort of information is required in this particular metric? So this is just an idea to tell you that how the things are going and why UGC CARE has came up in place. Now, the data that you require, the first 3 columns are very routine, where you talked about the title of the paper. Then you have to give the information about the name of the journal, publication year, because the paper should fall within the assessment period. Make sure that your paper is falling in the assessment period, and there should be a unique ISSN number to the journal. A journal without ISSN number is not considered, because they have mentioned that if you are providing incomplete data, then it will not be considered. Now, the recent changes that they have made, earlier there was only 1 column, whether it is listed or not. Now they have added 3 columns to support your claim for link to the recognition in the UGC enlistment of the journal. The first link is about the website of the journal, if it is published online. If offline, I will tell you what to provide. Then link to the article or the abstract. If the journal is not available, it's not an open access journal, then the full paper will not be available. Then, but you can definitely land into the page where you can get the abstract of the article, where you can find all the things: name of the author, title of the paper, and affiliation, author's affiliation. All these things can be clearly visible on this abstract page, or if it's an open access journal, on the paper. In addition, you have to provide a link to the UGC enlistment. So I will talk about UGC CARE in the next slide, but these are the things that are actually required in support of your claim. If you want to get a credit for a particular paper published by your faculty member, then you need to provide all this detail. So ideally, all these links are to be there. If the paper is not published online, then what to do? Then what you can do, you can have the scanned copy of the front page of the journal. Front page of the journal, scanned copy. then you can have a scanned copy of the article, and link to the UGC enlistment can be obtained from the UGC Care website. Okay, so if the journal is offline, no online version of the journal is available, then you can upload the scan copy of the journal front page and the paper. Okay, now how to get this UGC enlistment? So you need to understand what is UGC Care. Let me tell you very clearly that in my college, we have conducted a workshop on making the teachers aware about where to publish and how to publish. So normally what happens, teachers do a lot of research, they put a lot of effort, and in the end, they sell their paper to some journal. They will charge you for publishing your paper. So there are some good journals which are open access journal. If you are publishing your paper in some quality open access journal, and if you are paying some publication fee, it's okay. But otherwise, you are creating a knowledge, you are creating an addition to the knowledge, and you are giving money for its publication. So just for the sake of the promotion and other things. So that is not good idea. So normally what we should do is we should conduct a workshop for making the teacher aware, because unfortunately, India has become an hub for the fake and the fraudulent journal. Every now and then, every Gali Mahalla produces new journal, and they come up with in their first issue, they came up with the impact factor. I will be talking about the quality of the journal little later, but let me talk about what is UGC Care. Normally in UGC Care, you got two group 1 and group 2. Group 2 is about the globally recognized database that includes the Web of Science and Scopus. Web of Science and Scopus. Now, Web of Science and Scopus, Web of Science, even though the name is Web of Science, you will find a journal for all the disciplines: arts, science, social sciences. In Scopus, you will find a lot of journals on commerce and management as well. In Web of Science also, you will find a journal on, the journal in commerce and management listed in Web of Science. So these are the globally recognized database. So globally recognized means normally this is not dynamic. This is usually static. This list is usually static, because in the chat box, there may be a question that if a journal is a part of list 1 now and is not a part of list 1, say after 1 year, what to do, whether the data should be claimed or not. The data should be claimed. But I would suggest that all the faculty members should target the group 2 journals where they should publish rather than group 1 journal. Group 1 is essentially meant for what? Group 1, what is the idea behind it? On one event, we had a meeting with, we all clusterite, IQAC clusterites. We had a meeting with Bhushan Patwardhan, UGC Vice Chairman in Pune. And there we had a meeting, and he told us that why we had come up with the UGC Group 1, UGC Care List Group 1. The reason is there are some Indic language journal which are not being recognized by globally recognized database, or there are some really good journal, but they are not being recognized by the Web of Science or Scopus. In order to give justice to those journal, the UGC Care protocol has been defined, and a journal proper procedure of publication that is referred as what? The journal following the Care protocol. A journal which is following Care protocol is listed in the group 1. So especially only those people where journals are not available in the group 2, they should target list 1. Otherwise, they should look for the journal which is being indexed by the Web of Science or Scopus. Okay. Now, these are the snapshot. So as I mentioned, this is a snapshot which is landing to the abstract of the article. Like you can see the title of the article. This is one of the paper which we published in one of the prestigious journal in organic chemistry. So you can see my name here. You can see the title of the paper. And if you have to provide this particular link, in the column where you have been asked to provide the link to the abstract or paper of the article. And this is the list to support your claim that this journal is UGC listed or UGC care listed, because this is the Scopus listed journal, Scopus index journal, not Scopus listed, Scopus index journal. So this is the number that will tell you that this journal is indexed in Scopus. So sometimes the journal can be indexed in Web of Science. So you will get a link for the Web of Science, just to tell you that how you will get a interface where you will find that. Now coming to the next part. Next part is about the books, chapter in books, and proceeding. Three things: books, chapter in books, and the conference proceeding. Conference proceedings, abstract will not be considered. Here you need a full paper in conference proceeding. Mere abstract will not be considered. What is the data required? The data is usual, like name of the teacher, title of the paper, title of the book, author, co-author, title of the proceeding, title of the publisher, name of the publisher, and unique ISSN or ISBN number is required, and year of publication, just to ensure that it is falling in the assessment period. Now, what are the documentation part? When it comes to the documentation part, you need to provide, like when a conference proceeding is being sought by the IQAC coordinator, all teacher will, what they will do? They will do a scanning of the paper published in a conference proceeding or a book chapter published in a conference proceeding. In support of your claim, as per the DVV SOP, as per the SOP of DVV, what is required? You need to provide a cover page. Number one, cover page of the conference proceeding or cover page of the book. Number two is index page, where your name as an author and title of your paper is reflected. Number three is the first page of paper that you published, or first page of the paper, or first page of the chapter that you have published in a book. The first page will give you an information about the title of the paper, author's name, author's affiliation, because author's affiliation is also important. If a teacher who has published earlier and has joined your institutions later, those claims will not be considered. NAAC wants that the teacher who served your institution during the assessment period has contributed, and only those contributions will be considered. And of course, somewhere either on the cover page or on the index page or on the first page of your book chapter or the conference proceeding, the unique ISBN or ISSN number should be reflected. If a unique ISBN number is not reflected, you have to scan one more page where the ISBN of that particular conference proceeding is reflected. So third thing is this, and the fourth thing is a page where ISBN number is reflected. If not, if ISBN number is reflected in any of the three, like cover page, index page, or the first page of the paper, then no need to provide additional page. But all these things are required in order to in support of your claim for this particular metric. Okay. Now, number of research scholar registered under a guide. Now, as I mentioned in SSR, sometimes you need to provide, there will be a data sheet. Of course, the data sheet should be provided, Excel sheet would be provided, and the HEI need to maintain all the data available in the public domain. So you should provide a link to the HEI website where the details about the research student who are registered under the research supervisor of your institution is to be reflected. Like this is the link for our college where we have provided that how many PhD students are awarded working in our college under the guidance of our teachers. And of course, documents of registration of the research scholar indicating the guide name and the university is to be provided. Okay, the data sheet for this particular metric is linked with 242, 312, and of course the 331. And in order to encourage this, in many institutions, there is not a very conducive environment for research. So ideally, a teacher should be encouraged to get recognition as a PhD supervisor and encourage more and more teachers to to guide the students for PhD. This will eventually increase the research outcome of the institution. Okay, now this is all about the research. Now what IQAC can do in order to promote the research culture? Like you can conduct a workshop on making the awareness about the Google Scholar profile and the bibliometrics of the publication, like citation index, I10 index, H index. These are some of the things, and you can make them aware about the quality of the publication. Like you can make them aware about the impact factor, how they are calculated, how to get the information, how to look for the Clarivate Analytics impact factor report. Can define a policy for financial assistance to the teachers for attending conferences, can conduct small workshops on sources and funding, sources of funding and collaboration, ethics in publishing, I mean, keeping the teachers away from Control C, Control V culture, starting something like research award at college level, because in criteria number 6, you are always asked in AQAR when you are submitting your annual quality assurance report, there the question is in this particular academic session, what are the 2 initiative that you have taken, quality culture initiative that you have taken. This could be your one of the quality culture initiative that you have started a research award at your college level in order to encourage the research output. You can conduct a small workshop on record keeping of research profile. Of course, you can conduct a small workshop on research writing as well, like writing the project proposal, writing the research paper, writing the reviews, writing the books, likewise. And engaging student is also important. Like the summer research is one of the thing, like during the summer and winter vacation, the students can conduct research. So in our college, we have started this particular activity. We have a well-defined policy for its promotion, and we send our student at the premier institution. We encourage them, we conduct workshop for them, making awareness for making awareness. And at the same time, we also conduct the summer research in our college, and we have provided about 30,000 scholarship to the students who undertook the summer research this year in the 2021. Conducting the workshop on Inspire and KVPY and JAM, because if your students, they from undergraduate level, they go to some premier institutions like IIT or ISER, the Institute of National Importance, then they eventually becomes your illustrious alumni. So they will be the people who will be helping you in criteria number 5, where the peer team interacts with the alumni, because they are the mirror. They will show the picture that what a teacher has done for the teachers for the sake of the students. What a teacher has done for the sake of students can be reflected from the list of illustrious alumni. Okay, now this is all about, I have not talked about impact factor because of the time constraint. I10 bibliometrics I not talked about. Then the next part is about the extension activities, and there are 4 metrics which is applicable for all sorts of colleges, of which 1 is qualitative and 3 are quantitative. What to do and what not to do, that we will talk about. Okay, now here in extension activity, normally when it comes to the extension activity, the activity should address a problem area. So let it be water conservation, let it be health and hygiene, let it be socio-political consciousness. So it should address a problem area. It should lead to the development of a citizen or society, because this is a qualitative metric, one of the qualitative metrics which seeks information about how your activities have impact and sensitizing the student to social issues. So this particular qualitative metrics is important to see what is the impact of your activity on the society and on the students. So for this particular sake, actually, you have to make sure that you should have some success stories that you can showcase to the peer team on the day of peer team visit. And this is mostly institute driven because every institution has got his own locational advantage and disadvantage. Considering that, the activities can be planned and should be executed. There should not be routine activities. There are routine activities, like there are certain mandates from the government that you should conduct AIDS rally, you should conduct this rally, you should do this activity, pulse polio vaccination rally. So these are some of the things, volunteering pulse polio activity. These are some of the activities that are routinely being done by all the colleges. One of the colleges where I recently visited as a mock peer team member, and when I asked them what are the extension activities conducted by your college, they said, sir, we conduct blood donation camp. I asked them the question, show me a college which has not conducted blood donation camp in the India. All colleges, we have 40,000 colleges in the country. All colleges are conducting blood donation camp. What is your specialty? This is the way actually you need to think of, not doing the repeatedly same activity. So this should be the target that you should do, and you should do something unique. Like conducting blood donation is very common activity in all the colleges. But if you are doing blood donation, you are conducting a blood donation camp in a different way, like something like maintaining the rare blood group donor profile, right? And rare blood group donor, and we all know that the rare blood group donor blood donation during the camp, their blood is not being collected, rather they are called on site when the blood is needed, isn't it? So you need to show that we are maintaining a profile, and whenever the civil hospital or the government hospital or anybody who needs a rare blood group donor, we provide them with the donor with the contact number, and when we provide them the donor, and the donor goes there and he donates, and you should collect the certificate that your donor has donated the blood on so and so date, right? Like many colleges are doing activity. If you are in a drought prone area, you are doing a water conservation activity. But if you are doing activity, merely water conservation activity, then you should count the impact, that what was the water table earlier and what is the water table after your activity. Maybe 3-4 years later, you can check whether there's an improvement in the water table in the region. And if you have done some activity where the beneficiaries, like you have provided some training to the people, and because of your training, some people they could make their arrangement for their bread and butter, then probably you can invite them and you can have your beneficiaries available during the peer team visit, and you can facilitate an interaction between your beneficiaries and the peer team member. And of course, one of the thing that you are repeatedly doing over the years that could be showcased as a best practice in the extension activity. So these are some of the things that you should look for, because extension activity is one area where no one needs to talk about, because from the mandate of the government, because of the mandate of the government, all the institutions conduct many activities based on this. However, I would say, so these are some of the areas where you are conducting activities like water conservation, health and hygiene, village adoption, socio-political consciousness, like voter awareness rally and other, environmental conservation. Through NSS and NCC, we conduct so many activities. We conduct activities where we conduct activities within the institutions, and we reach out to the people who are unreached, and we do some activity like providing them food. And this COVID-19 has given us a lot of opportunity for doing the outreach activity, reaching out to the unreached and providing them with the suitable facilities. So more or less every institution has done something like providing sanitizer, providing masks to the people, providing some sort of grocery to the people, so this kind of activity everyone has done. So that's not an issue. What I am talking about is we do activities, but I would again go back to the previous slide, have something unique to impress the peer team member, count the impact of the activity, have your beneficiaries available during the peer team visit, and try to showcase one of the extension, because you have to showcase 2 best practices in criteria number 7. So one of the best practice could be from the extension activity, because extension is an area which is normally close to the peer team member. So if you're doing something good for the society other than your teaching and research, this could be one of your best practice. Out of the 2 best practices, this could be one of the best practice. So you can always showcase one of the best practice out of it. In the extension activity, there is a metric which is related to the awards that you have received. Now here, award, what is expected? Award for the extension activity. So like the award that you received, like best NSS unit award, best NCC unit award, like in Maharashtra government offers a Vanashri Puraskar, Swachh Bharat Puraskar, or award which is awarded by NGOs. All these things can be considered, but these awards should not be below the taluka level award, tehsil place. They should not be, I mean, urban or local bodies or panchayat, they should not be, the award given by these bodies will not be considered. It should be district and above. It should be district and above, and it should be an award to the individual, award to the institution, not to the individual, and only for the extension activities. Like if someone is getting a best teacher award, you cannot show it here. But if someone is getting a best NSS coordinator award or best NSS teacher award, then you can showcase it, because NSS coordinator award is given to the teacher, but because of for his work in NSS area. So you can show best NSS coordinator award of the university under this best NCC, what you call best NCC captain or commander of the university, that you can showcase, but it should be district and above. Okay. Now, when it comes to the quantitative metrics, whatever the activities we do, extension and outreach activities we do, it is important that we should maintain a up-to-date record of that. Record of the activity. Each and every activity, the record should be perfectly maintained, and you cannot show, as I mentioned in my first slide, that I will talk about do's and don'ts. So don't show industrial tour in this. So what you should do, what are the supporting document in support of your claim? Say you have conducted blood donation camp. What are the documents required? A detailed report signed by the in-charge teacher and the principal. Maybe a one-page report. And that includes, the report should include photographs. Of course, the photograph should be geotag photograph with the caption and the date. And the report should be supported by the number of participants. Normally, for every activity, I would suggest that an attendance sheet to be maintained where you took a signature of all the participants, and the newspaper clips in support of the event that you conducted. Because sometimes you do not have geotag photograph. There is a possibility that the activity is conducted 3-4 years before, you may not have geotag photograph. But it doesn't mean that you cannot put your claim. You can definitely put your claim, and you need to support your activity by whatever the evidences you have. Like you have newspaper, sometimes you have video clip, sometimes the some people maintain their activities on Facebook page. So link to the Facebook page can be provided in the activity report. Or some people used to upload the activity on the social media like YouTube. So you can provide a YouTube link. If you are maintaining a YouTube channel, you should provide a link to that video link to that activity, isn't it? So whatever you feel, you should provide those evidences in support of your claim. So this is what is expected in the context of extension activities, and all the metrics which are related to the quantitative metrics related to the extension activities. So I will not talk much about it because everyone knows it and everyone is following this. But only thing is the documentation part where everyone needs to focus. And if you are not maintaining the record earlier, try to generate the record. Very responsibly I am saying this, because you have conducted the activity and that activity should not go in vain. It should be counted for your NAAC accreditation. If you are able, you are in a position that you can generate a record, you should generate it. Okay. So, and as I talked about, one of the activity from your extension activity could be a best practice. So I just studied your Shashun website, and there I found that you got some Center for Excellence for Women Empowerment. So definitely, I think I have not seen your SSR because of the time constraint, but I think your best practice should be related to the women empowerment itself. I guess one of the best practice should be. And our one of the best practice is also related to the women empowerment. So how we arrived at our best practice that I will showcase. Just to tell you, this is just a case study to identify the best practice from the extension activity. So we have an women empowerment and entrepreneurship cell, which is established in 2005, and it works for the overall empowerment of the women, and is run by faculty members and the students. And it works for gender equity, gender sensitization, empowerment of women through self-employment, and it awareness about women's safety, legal. So these are some of the issues that are being dealt with this particular cell, and it's working since 2005. So what we did, we have showcased the as one of our best practice, and the title of the practice is empowering women through self-employment to self-dependence. This was the title, and these were the objectives, and we have showcased it, and we have conducted many activities, and we have supported all our evidences of the activities. Like these were the photographs, just to show you what were the activities, like cooking and baking workshops, gender equality, then women entrepreneurship and workshop and exhibition on the artifacts prepared by the participants and the trainings provided by our women empowerment cell, and a workshop on preparing eco-friendly bouquet. Just before last year, our college has never used the floral bouquet. These are the bouquets which are prepared from the plastic waste, and these bouquets are being used by our college. And we have developed a mechanism wherein the students are earning money. So whenever the college needs a bouquet, or anyone needs a bouquet, or we order it to our women empowerment and entrepreneurship cell, and we give them some money. The students are also earning some money out of it. And these are some of the things that I want to show here. Now, this was the day of the peer team visit. These are the 3 photographs of the peer team visit. So when the peer team came to our college, this is the first photographs. This is me. I'm welcoming the peer team member. This is our principal, and we are explaining the peer team member that these are the floral book. These are not the floral bouquets. These are the bouquets prepared from the plastic and the paper based by our students and our women empowerment cell. It means that when the peer team entered our campus, the moment they entered, we started showcasing our best practice. We are explaining them that these are the bouquets that we prepare. And this is actually the coordinator, the convener of the women empowerment and entrepreneurship cell, and she's very proactively. She said, I need a room to show the activity, whatever I have done since 2005. So she really did a very, very hard work, and she actually prepared some calendars to show the events, and she planned so meticulously in showing everything, whatever she has done, and very proactively she has explained it. And as I mentioned about having your beneficiaries on site during the peer team visit. So these are the beneficiaries. And who are the beneficiaries? The beneficiaries are the women from the society, our ex-students, and the present students. These are the beneficiaries of the activities conducted by the Women Empowerment Cell. So we had around on the day of the visit, we have around 50 women from the society who got benefited from the activities of the Women Empowerment and Entrepreneurship Cell. So these people, they actually interacted, even though language was the barrier. Like the beneficiaries were talking in Marathi, and the peer team member could hardly understand Hindi, but still the expression speaks more than words, and our purpose was served. So whatever we do, we also need to learn how to showcase the things on the day of the peer team visit. Okay, now coming to the last key indicator, and it is about the collaboration and linkage. So there are 2 metrics. One of them is related to the linkage, and other one is about the collaboration. So linkage and collaboration are the 2 things which are being these are the 2 things which have been assessed in this particular metric. And this linkage and collaboration should be aimed for the faculty exchange, student exchange, internship, field trip, on-the-job training, and research, etc. And the second metric is about the functional MOU. So the three important keywords in this particular key indicator are linkage, collaboration, and MOU. Let us understand what is linkage, what is collaboration, and what is MOU, and what documents are required. That we will see. A linkage is essentially some sort of formal agreement between the two or more institutions which may not have legal binding. So no need to have this linkage. Linkage could be like exchange of letter or exchange of email, could be good enough evidence. Exchange of letters or email could be a good evidence for establishing a linkage. And linkage can be done. Linkage is a sort of a thing wherein the two partners, they are coming together and one of them is actually getting benefit and another is not. So in linkage, it's not necessary that everyone should get benefit. So sometimes industry, you can have a linkage with an industry for on the job training or industrial training, but the industry may not get benefit out of it, but your institution will get more benefit out of it. So whatever the benefits they get may not be equal, but this is what linkage is all about. And you can have a linkage for, there is a in the data sheet, you need to answer one of the column where you need to talk about nature of linkage. So linkage could be for academic purpose, linkage could be for training purpose, or linkage could be for research, like field trip, arranging the field trip for study visits, or organizing a series of guest lecture. Merely organizing the field trip or merely organizing the guest lecture will not be claimed under this metric. For this, you should have certain communication, exchange of letters or email that should be that should support your claim that you have developed the linkage. And if you're repeatedly going for one institution for the visit, then probably it would support your claim to a better extent. Like sometimes you need hands-on training, industrial training, on-the-job training. You can develop a linkage with the industry. And say for building the research, for the research purpose, for sharing the research facility, you can develop a linkage. For guidance on research, like you can seek a guidance from someone. For execution of a collaborative project, you can build a linkage. So academic, training, and research purpose, you can conduct, you can develop linkages with other institutions. Collaboration is something different. Collaboration is something where so many people, or two or more people, they are coming together and to achieve something, and where everyone is getting the benefit. Everyone is getting the benefit. This is the picture that will tell you. This is a picture from the jigsaw that 4 group of people, they are coming together with their individual expertise and they are preparing a common picture, a bigger picture. So this is a perfect example of a collaboration. And an operation in an operation theater, a surgery in an operation theater is a very good example of a collaboration, where you got a physician, you got an anesthetician, you got a surgeon who is taking care of the surgery, you got a support staff, and you got all the support staff. These are some of the all are contributing and for the one cause, and the cause is the successful surgery, isn't it? So this is a very good example of a collaboration. I normally use these 2 pictures while explaining the collaboration. And you can really collaborate on what are the issues where academician can collaborate. You can collaborate for running a course. 2 or more institutions can come together and they can run a common course, maybe a certificate course, maybe an add-on course you can run. You can collaborate for, and the course beneficiaries will be both the institutions. Party A as well as Party B will be beneficiary. Joint project, maybe a joint research project you can write, where someone asked me about the co-investigator. So PI and co-I from different institutions because of their different expertise, because I am the one who is actually greatly benefited by the collaboration. I am an organic synthetic chemist. I do some synthetic organic chemistry, and I have collaborated with some doctors from AIIMS, and we are jointly doing some work on filariasis, breast cancer, because I am not having an expertise in the area of the parasitology and the medicinal biochemistry, but I am the expert who can prepare new compounds. So I used to prepare the compound and my collaborator do the rest, and we collectively publish the paper. And I have published around 12 papers with my collaborators. So joint publication, sorry, it should be joint publications, and utilizing the resources and expertise. Say I have one equipment with me, and the other institutions have other equipment with them. So probably sharing their resources and sharing their expertise, this could be the purpose of collaboration. Okay, so if you want to, for this particular linkage and collaboration means 351, for the metric 351, what is expected? Earlier communication, exchange of letters or exchange of email, and there should be some, I mean, like normally what happens, the student, they themselves contact the industry and they go for the on-the-job training or internship, but that will not be considered here. That can be considered if and only if college takes initiative and send the students for the internship. Okay, so the who has to do the work? The institution or the college need to take the initiative. College need to take the initiative, then only it can be claimed as the effort taken by the institution for building the linkage and collaboration. The last metric is 352, which is about the functional MOU. Here, what is expected? The word functional is very, very important. You sign an MOU. MOU should be normally on what you call, what is that called as? Bond paper. What do you call? It is being issued by the revenue department, and you need to get, it should be, I mean, registered bond paper. It may not be registered with the registry office, but it should be on the, I mean, you should get a bond which has got a legal binding on the bond paper that you get from the revenue department. It should be signed on that. And MOU should be functional. What the three important keyword related to the MOU is, there should be a start date and end date. And if it's an open-ended, then the end date should be mentioned like the MOU will end when both the parties agreed to dissolve the MOU. Likewise, you need to define the start date and end date. And most importantly, the purpose for which MOU is being made should be clearly defined. And number 3 is, what are the benefits of the party 1 and what are the benefits of the party 2? They should be clearly mentioned in the MOU. And the MOU should be functional, means at least there should be one activity, at least one activity should be conducted under that MOU. For example, I talked about IoT lab as a part of incubation center. And for developing the application, Android application, we need to collaborate with the IT industry. So with the nearby IT industry, we have collaborated and we have signed an MOU with that IT industry that they will provide a training to our student. Now it is expected that that industry should come with their experts on the site and they should train the students for developing the Android application. And how many beneficiaries are there? Everything should be mentioned in the data sheet, the date of activity that you have conducted, and as usual, the activity to be supported by the report, by the photographs, by the news, and if any financial transactions being done with, as a part of that MOU, it should be reflected in the audited statement as well. Okay, so these are some of the things that it depends upon the purpose for which you are doing MOU. An MOU can be done with any institution. You can do it with other institution. Make sure that it is not a part of the same management, under the same trust or sister institutions. MOU should be with other institutions, usually the institutions of national importance, or you can do it with the industry as well. And like one of the MOU that we did, it was related to the coaching. So like ours is a college which has got a state-of-the-art sporting facility. Our campus, we have a sprawling campus of 97 acres, and we have Olympic standard swimming pool and a indoor stadium with 2 wooden court and cement courts for badminton. So we have very good sporting facility, but we need a proper coach for that. So what we did, we had an MOU with a badminton academy, which is providing a coaching in the region since long. And we had an MOU with that. And every year we provide the coaching to the badminton coaching to the to the students and to the persons from the society. Even the school children, they used to come and they spend the time in our college and they get coaching there. They utilize our infrastructure and the expertise, the trainer is from outside. So this is just an example how you can explore and develop the MOU. So MOU is one thing which you can do it for teaching, for research, for extension, for sports, for anything you want. You can sign an MOU and make sure that your MOU should have start date, end date, purpose, and the activities in support of your claim. At least one activity per year should be conducted under the MOU. Okay, so with these I will end my session, and in the end I would, so what are the takeaway? My criterion number 3 is very, very good. The score in the criterion number 3 is very good in comparison to the other criterion. We got 3.76 in criterion number 3. Our overall score is 3.08. Only because of the criterion number 3, our score, we could reach to the A grade. Okay, and a research tab to be maintained. I seen the Shashan website there. I could see a research tab, but research policy need to be updated there. In the context of developing a quality culture in the context of research, for fostering active research environment or fostering research, IQAC may conduct small workshop. The list I have already discussed, and one can find out a scope for presenting a best practice or distinctiveness of the institution in the SSR. It could be from research, it could be from extension. And one of the important point that I have highlighted is try to facilitate the interaction with the beneficiaries of your activities with the peer team member. It will create a positive mindset in the positive mindset of the peer team, and it could be helpful that you may get more than what you expect in other metrics as well. Because if you are able to impress the peer member, then probably there is a possibility that you may get some good credit in other metrics as well. So if you are preparing for SSR submission, make sure that presentation of data is important. Refer the manual and SOP, which is frequently updated. So refer the manual and SOP DVV, which is updated time to time, and try to analyze the question first and be sure on what is asked and what we are submitting. Don't submit anything which is not required. Submit the things which are essential. Don't forget to submit the things which are essential. So with these codes, I will stop here. So thank you very much once again. Thank you, organizer, and all the participants for giving me an opportunity to share the criteria number 3 with you people in my own way. Okay, thank you. Over to you, ma'am, now.
Thank you, sir. Sir, we do have few questions in the chat box. With your permission, can I read out for you?
Yeah, definitely, please.
Yes. So the first question from Suchita: if co-investigator is in project, can he or she be considered?
I already answered, I think.
Okay, that is answered.
Yeah,
Okay, sir. The second question is, what about retired teachers? Can they be considered if they are still attached to the college?
No, retired teacher. See, NAC wants, if you want to claim them as a full-time teacher, if you think that if you have given them over 90% of the workload of the full-time teacher, at least for one semester, you can consider them as a full-time teacher for that year. So if you are considering them as a full-time teacher, you can consider the retired teacher as well.
Thank you, sir. And a question from Kalpana: if the college is undergraduate and the faculty of the same college is PhD guide, so can we include her in the UG college? Doubtful, as UG college does not offer teaching.
No. For UG college, this metric is not applicable. So you cannot enter that, but you can showcase when the peer team comes to for the departmental interaction. On the day, you can tell that even though we are a UG college, we do not have a research center, but our teachers are recognized guide and they have guided this much student number and these are their outcome. This is the way you can definitely show them.
Okay, sir. And another question from Sri Vidya ma'am: we are yet to get recognition for PhD program, but we have research departments where we offer MPhil programs and have guides duly recognized by our university. Can we show those faculty members as recognized guides?
Actually, NAC seeks information related to the PhD guides only. not related to the MPhil. Again, the same strategy. Even if you are not able to mention it in DVV, show it to the peer team whenever they are on site.
Okay, sir. And a question from Ratan Chaudhary. NSS volunteer got university level best NSS volunteer award in 2019-20, but he received in 2021. Can be included in 21-22.
See, award always has got some year. For the year they have given the award. So the work you have done for the year 1920 was, even though it's awarded late, you can include it in 1920, because for the work you have done in the 1920, the award was given.
Okay, sir. Another question from the same participant. We send our students to our sister institute for different skill-oriented workshop or certificate. How we can claim it?
Sorry, ma'am, can you please repeat?
They are sending their students to their sister institute for different skills, sir, like oriented workshop or certificate. How to claim for the same?
See, you can actually, you can claim it in criteria number 1 or 2, where you can tell ki these are the efforts by the institution for effective curriculum delivery. There, for enriching the learning experience of the student, you are sending your student somewhere else. But you cannot, if you are sending it to your sister institutions, you cannot claim it under the linkage and the collaboration.
Okay, sir. And question from Prashant Deshpande. Where to get fellowship for research in language and literature, and what is the process to get funds?
See, I'm not an expert to answer this question, but
Exactly.
Still I would say that I have given the list. So you can, the languages or the area in which you are doing research, just do some Google and find out the websites which are providing funding for that. Like if you are from English, the RELO, the British Council and the RELO, they provide a good amount of funding for conducting the research and trainings. So there you can explore.
Okay, so the last question of the session. That was the last question, sir.
Oh, that was the last question.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would like to propose the vote of thanks officially. Good evening, all. Gratitude is not only the greatest of virtues, but the parent of all others. With that note, I, Dr. V. Mary Diana, Assistant Professor, Department of Commerce, General Shift 1, feel honored to propose the vote of thanks for Day 3 of 1-week virtual faculty development program on the topic Understanding the NAAC Criteria Marching Towards the Excellence. Firstly, I thank Almighty for blessing our day a grand success. On behalf of our college management, Madam Principal Dr. S. Padmavati, Madam Vice Principal Dr. S. Rukmani, IQAC directors and members of Criteria 3, and faculty members of Sri Shankarlal Sundarbai Shasun Jain College for Women, I extend my gratitude to our keynote speaker, resource person, IQAC Cluster India, Dr. Hemant Kumar S. Chandak, sir, Professor and Head, Department of Chemistry and Coordinator, IQAC, GS Science, Arts and Commerce College, Kamgan, Buldana, for an informative and productive session about Criteria 3, research and extension activities, and for a detailed content of all submetrics under Criteria 3. So thank you for making us aware about the significance and scope of the criteria. The session, which focused on the requirement, documentation, do's and don'ts, scope for improvement, and preparation of the same, will definitely be useful to both the faculty and as well as the management of the college. Once again, I thank you, sir, for the comprehensive information about Criteria 3. Finally, I thank all our participants for your valuable presence, which made this day a grand success. And your questions, hope our resource person answered all the questions very patiently. Thank you, sir, once again.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
One announcement actually. You
Yes,
can
sir.
join our Telegram IQAC cluster. We have a Telegram channel, a Telegram group, and all the participants can join. You can get all your queries solved there, because we have around 3,500, more than 3,500 IQAC coordinators and IQAC personnel all across the country. So it's humble request to all of you to join there. The link has been shared by my colleague, Professor Kangude sir. So in the chat box, the link will be provided. You can join the Telegram group and you can, send your queries there and you can get yourself satisfied with the queries. Thank you.
So kind of you, sir. Thank you for that opportunity given to all of us so that all our queries will definitely be sorted out. Thank you, sir. I request the participants to fill the feedback form in the chat box and then leave for the day. Thank you all once again.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable presence.
Yeah. Thank you.